What's up, and welcome to Nighttime at the Nerd Bar, episode 101.
We remembered we're doing black
Woo!
and white for Dalmatians.
Is there 101
Which is,
Dalmatians?
yes, because past Katie set a reminder and forgot about it until it went off 2 hours ago and went, oh, yeah, we're doing that.
And I was like, oh, yeah, that was a great idea. Let's see what I have.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, this works.
Thank-
Yeah.
Thank you, past Katie. Katie from a week ago, like, we're doing it.
Yes, it's cute. I love it. We are going to be talking about Delicious in Dungeon, solo leveling. We also have a guest, and we're going to have our recommendations of other things you should check out at the end. So stick around for all of that. We are live. Join us in the live chat if you're watching live. If you're watching later, no worries. Comment down below. Let's get into some intros. What's up? I'm Carrie Lane.
And I'm Katie Cullen.
And I think about time is now to bring in our guest.
Yes,
and
we don't have news tonight. So we are going to go straight into Delicious in Dungeon because that is who our wonderful guest is for. We will be covering solo leveling afterwards, and then we'll go into recommendations. So it's episode 101. We're shaking it up.
Yes, we are doing our chaser before the shot.
Yeah.
All right, so let's switch over. We got our Delicious in Dungeon. Welcome back, Alex Von David. Woo!
Thanks for having me back.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming back, especially on such short notice.
No worries. I mean, I'm not working on Delicious in Dungeon anymore, so this is my time to talk about whatever the experiences were on the last couple of episodes that I worked on. So.
And then for those of you who have missed our last episode, one, go watch it. We have a great amount of awesome guests, and you don't need to be caught up on any of the shows. It's all guests, all the whole show. But for the people that haven't watched that, Alex, let viewers know what was your involvement with Delicious in Dungeon.
Oh, I adapted the scripts for the dubbing, and then I did the voice direction for it as well for episodes 1 through 4. And for the scripts, I wrote up to episode 6.
Nice. Which is what we're covering. We're covering 3 and 4. So perfect.
Yes. Good.
Yes. Also,
no, we're going to bring you in for things you weren't involved with. It'll be great.
Well, let's see. How would I have done that? I mean, I don't know.
Astral projection. I don't know.
Yeah, that would have been a great show to work on, if only.
I'm looking over real quick in the chat. We got Heck says, hello, party people. Hello.
Hello, Heck.
And then
cheers.
I also mentions getting coffee, so I shall be a little late. Yay! Get your beverage. Yes, we all. Yeah. Yes.
Oh, Heck!
It's too late in your time zone for coffee. Heck, do you sleep? The answer is no. He does not.
I know some people who like coffee at night, like getting ready for bed, and you're like, what? I don't know.
They're more powerful than I am.
I don't know why you want to comment if you want to be ignored, but hello, Rab. Rab says, hello, ignore me. No. And then Giga Derek says, greetings from the void. Yes.
Yeah, Giga Derek is the one who screams back when you scream into the void. It's a whole system.
Then I was like, that's just making me think of the True Detective. Don't kick an orange into the dark; it might come back. But I'm like,
I'm sure that's very creepy in context. Out of context, it's just really funny.
You're like, what? Yeah.
Speaking of going into the dark, Delicious in Dungeon, we're down to a trap room, and we're down to floor 3 in these episodes. So talk to us a little bit about working on these episodes. What went into them? What was your approach in the script? Like, just give us a little bit of the process.
Oh, surprisingly, the adaptation process was not too difficult. Just the way the performances were in Japanese and how the mouth flaps were animated. There weren't a lot of those pesky, like, one flap, a second of nothing, and then a bunch of flaps, and then another second of nothing, and then 2 more little flaps at the end. There wasn't a lot of that at all. And the way the manga was actually translated, adapted, everybody seemed to speak in a very sort of what's the word? Like a very sort of comfortable, casual sort of way, kind of not old-timey at all. It was kind of modern. Yeah. So I respected that and honored that in hopefully in the adaptation. And also in the performances too, we kept it like casual. I think Senshi We just, after discussing it with Sungwon a little bit on the first day, he's a huge fan of it. He's been following it since the manga came out. So he's the expert.
Nice.
And so we spoke a little about it before we started recording, and he had a chance to look at the scripts ahead of time, and he got what I was doing with Senshi. His phrasing might be a little more little more folksier than the others, but he liked it, and he definitely ran with it in places. But it was relatively stress free, and the scripts, pretty much weren't like brain busters. I wasn't I wasn't sitting on a line or two or a scene for like hours thinking, okay, so these hitches are, I can't put all of this information here in these mouth flaps. I have to figure out where else to put it in the scene if possible, or figure out other ways of like flipping lines around or doing something so that we don't change the intention. But we, still honor the intention and honor those lip flaps, which we can't change, obviously.
So Delicious in Dungeon flowed a little more easily than some other projects, would you say?
Yeah, no, definitely. And both in the writing and in the recording, because everybody, well, with the exception of Emily, poor Emily, she was recording remotely when she was recording with me. And in fact, I only got to record with her up to the first half of Marcel's dialogue in episode 3. And then I was supposed to record with her in studio when she was back in town, but I had jury duty. So the person who is taking over the directing of the show was ready to go. We had talked at length about the show and stuff, and they had come in and watched a couple of the recording sessions, and they knew the material and all that kind of stuff. And the person taking over adapting the script, they also came in too. You'll find out who the new director is this week, week's episode. And then in episode 7, you'll find out who the person is who took over the script adaptation. I don't want to say right now because, obviously, I want it to be a surprise for everybody, and I want them to have, a moment to say, hey, guess what? I'm working on this, having fun. Hopefully they're having fun.
So to be able to make the announcement themselves.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Don't want to take away their thunder.
Oh, yeah. No. Also, they're going to be so excited to make those announcements. So if anybody thinks they're holding back, no, they'll announce when they can. Watching a show about so much food, how difficult is that to like work on it, and like how hungry does it make you? And which of those items so far would you want to eat and try?
So when they made the hot pot, the best thing I could get nearby was like just a bowl of ramen. So I mean, after sitting there going through the script and adapting, all that stuff, I was like, okay, so I'm going to go down to the Vietnamese place down the street, and I'm going to go get something that sort of resembles hot pot. And so I had that. The lobster would have been great. That certainly crossed my mind, but I'm not going to go get lobster to go. That's just, you don't do that.
A little trickier.
I feel like there's a lobster truck that goes around Los Angeles where that might work.
Not near my place.
No.
I think I know the one you mean. Like they do the lobster sandwiches,
the lobster
and rolls and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's like Cousin's Main Lobster Truck or something. Yeah. Those guys.
Mm-hmm.
They're in Burbank a lot. But that's
drive by my neighborhood, my side of Burbank, the mean streets.
Really?
the downbeat side of Burbank.
Well, it takes more effort, but I just wait till it's on sale at the grocery store, and then you just bake it in the oven. But I would love watching the show because I love cooking, so I'm just like I'm all with I love Senshi, like his approach to food. Because I was like, yes, I get this, yes,
yeah.
No, but like when they did the basilisk thing. Mm-hmm. I had to go get some roast chicken, and I mean, it was weird how it affected me, because normally I don't watch like the cooking shows. Like I'll maybe dip in for an episode or something like that, but I never really was excited about anything enough to stick with it. This one, I haven't seen Food Wars, and I hear that's pretty weird. So I think I might, like that just for its weirdness.
Yeah.
You say
maybe I don't know.
If you want to dip into a cooking anime, Campfire Cooking in Another World with My Weird Skill is one of my favorites, and the reason I learned how to make Oyakodon, like, it's really a light novel title, it really is, but it's such a good show.
Really?
Yeah, Crunchyroll.
Wow, okay.
And Food Wars does have the recipes sometimes, as I recall, or things I wanted to try when they do the cooking. I was like, sure, I could try some of that. Or
do they do where they like walk you through step by step and you add this and you do this thing?
Or it's the similar to how like Delicious in Dungeon is doing it too, where they're like, hey, this thing causes this result, which you could apply to real life. Like, okay, this gets the bitterness out. This helps break down the protein, which makes meat more tender. Which then also makes me think now too of the scene where they're eating out of the helmet, which I'm like, steamed. Oh. That was the first thing coming to my head too. But then it's like, oh no, that did not go well. Yeah.
No.
For Katie and Alex, was that surprising of like what it was that was controlling these suits of armor? Because that was not something I expected. Of like, interesting, and yes, it did turn out to be food.
Yeah, when I read the manga first before starting work on the show. Not the whole thing. I think I got like the first 3 volumes. And so, but when I got to that, oh, this is what it is. I was like, wow, that's clever. That was so clever. Like the author, she's just amazing. I can't wait to like find out what else she's writing next. Because I'm so gonna pick it up. So her drawing style is so cute too. And then there are places where it just gets like especially with Marcel, her reactions are so funny in the manga, and I'm so glad that Trigger kept those and then sometimes amplified those just enough. And it was when I found out about the living armor mollusk thingies, I was wow, what a great idea.
Katie, how was that for you?
I was not expecting mollusks, and just as a person, I've never had a good one. Like, I am not like an oyster and texture hell. I did the whole thing. I made the attempt. I will eat escargot. I love escargot. I will not do mollusks. I've tried, didn't work. So I really did appreciate how the episode set it up, how we had this living armor is known to be this. These aren't acting like normal living armor. Oh, it's an egg sac. Oh, it's this. And I'm sitting here going, it's a legion of spiders. It was not that.
Yeah.
But I did like the explanation of it's a colony, they work together, they mimic the muscle systems that would then move the armor. That explains why they move the way they do, why the parts are interchangeable, but they still track movement with the helmet. Like, I did appreciate, for one, that Laios is smart enough to figure these things out. You don't always get a shonen protagonist with a brain in his head. So I appreciate that we have this for him, that his obsession is not just eating them, but also being knowledgeable. And
he's got that big book with all those bookmarks in it. I mean, he's studied up on these things.
Yeah. And I appreciate that we have that, because usually your bruiser does not do that, just as a character archetype. So I do love that. I do love that his special interest is not just food focused, but is the whole package in terms of knowing about monsters. This is a guy who would raise a chimera from an egg if he could. Like a manticore from an egg. He would. He just strikes me as that kind of guy. So
if he didn't want to eat it, yeah.
Oh,
he wanted to take that. He wanted to take that little branch of the bulb from the man-eating fruit plant up to the surface, and
he's got a little friend mollusk in his sword now.
Yes,
he's got a buddy.
Yeah. Made the face like the whole time was like, like it's staying with him, because I'm okay with them eating it and everything, but just having the critter tag along was a bit much. Like,
Oh, and I'm the absolute opposite. I'm like, oh, this is disgusting eating. Oh, he's got a friend. Oh, that's gonna be fun.
I did think yes, as well, that could be useful later, possibly as long. I'm just curious how intelligent it is. Is it kind of like cool? I'm going along for the ride, or is it a bit more like I've been kidnapped?
I mean,
I'm
how
curious
intelligent is a bee or an ant or anything else that lives in a colony?
Well, as far as I've read in the manga, it is intelligent, and yeah.
Okay.
I may cut you off there because we do try
That's
to
good,
avoid
yeah.
manga spoilers, but I do love that little snippet. That's
It's
fun.
intelligent. It seems intelligent. Doesn't seem like hive mind, no thoughts. And also, it didn't mind leaving the colony as well. It didn't try to like, I cannot leave. It's like, all right, sure.
To be fair, its entire colony did just get eaten. Like, those were the ones that they ate. They yeeted the eggs out the door, and then they ate everyone else. So, like, it doesn't have a colony to go back to at the moment.
Like, bye, everybody.
Like, I am the lone survivor.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I appreciated the mystery. I appreciated how they approached it. Just the construction of this episode on a story level was so well done. And then also with the flashback and with his previous trauma with the armor and the meaning to his sword and his sword decoration. Just the whole thing was very well built just as a story. I really appreciate when they do that.
I like that one kill though too. It was kind of one of those like, wait, what? That came out of nowhere right away when they broke in on the memory. You're like, oh, well, because we get our moments of the what are the stakes in Delicious, but it is definitely not the same as like in Solo Leveling because we're watching both at the same time. Like that one's like, oh my gosh, and Delicious is a little more like, like it's fine. We can bring you back. If you die, it's no big deal. Because they talk about it nonchalantly, like, yeah, that happened the first time I died. It's cool.
Yeah, and it's death is an inconvenience. You just want to make sure that you're with people who will haul your corpse ass back to the surface to be revived. It's bad if you get eaten by a dragon.
Remember, there's a time limit. Yeah, because Fallon's only got 30 days before she's fully digested, they say. So if they die and have to be resurrected and then come back, it's like that's going to take away all that time to find that pesky red dragon. So those are the stakes. And that was what I was always reminding like Damien and stuff like that, because I think he brought that up too. He brought up because Damien was also he was reading the manga as we were recording as well. So he was keeping up. Everybody actually was reading it, I think.
Dang.
Emily was definitely reading it. Damien was. I forget about Casey. But I remember, I'm pretty sure with Damien, I remember saying, oh, can I get another take? These are the stakes. So we just need to
Nice.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's good when people can keep that in mind. When it's not just words on the page, it's here's the motivation, here's the overarching, like, I love it. Just love hearing about it.
Looking over
That's
in the
chat.
Job. Rab says the Mollux is now in Fair and Beyond Journey's end arc. All right, so Mollux.
Rab, I thought you wanted us to ignore you. No, please keep commenting. It's fun.
Yes, if you're in the live chat, feel free to chime in, or if you have questions as well. Was there anything else in this episode before we move on to the next one, Katie? I feel we kind of covered the main big stuff in this one. I think
that was the big one. It was interesting to see something that Senshi had not approached or cooked before. And just that little trial and error of, oh, it drowned. Oh, I guess we can't get the dirt off that way. Well, I guess it wouldn't be dirty because it was an armor. Just
and then that's mold, and like no, and then if you
it tastes like mold. Well, gee,
that's a very potent smell if you've ever come across it too closely.
And this is why you keep your dedicated cooking vessels clean. Just like guys, just very Jurassic Park. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Cooking and preparing kind of leads into the next episode. I like Senshi's storage space for cooking and just how he has this side room in there. He's like, that's cool. I was actually like heading up and that's how I ran into you all, which I thought was pretty funny. Yeah. And then his garden and his gardening was pretty fun with the golems of like, sure, that makes sense. But there's all parts of the process of what goes into fertilizer, and it's fun seeing other people not be aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
Katie, what was something in this part of like that stood out? I mean, we'll
He
get to the
named
bigger part of
them.
it. Yes, they
He
named.
named it's
He cares. Yes.
Yes. And Senshi being extremely aware of how the balance of this dungeon is between the different floors on the
ecosystem.
floors
Yes.
themselves. Like, yeah, he doesn't know a damn thing about traps. There's still plenty that he needs to learn. He is doing his own underground mountain man thing, as it were. But it's good to see, like, oh, this is where he's from. He chooses to do this. He's like this for a reason. He made himself a part of this ecosystem and he is benefiting from it, but he is also its caretaker, especially on this floor in particular. And the comment about there used to be 10, now there's 3. If the golems don't keep the monsters from below down there, then you wind up with, again, an ecosystem collapse, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So I liked that. That was very thoughtful of the series.
And on that note, so when we got to that line with someone, the line that ends with "It makes me happy," it makes me feel like I'm a part of this dungeon. I really stepped foot in this dungeon. When we got to that line, I remembered that I had a bit of trouble articulating that in English on the page. And so we got to that line and I said, "Oh, Sungwon, since you're the expert here, check out this line and tell me what you think." And he immediately picked up on how it sort of ended. And he was like, "Actually, here's the deal." And he explained it to me. And then I think I tweaked the last or the second to last sentence. And then I said something like that, and so that's what we ended up recording. It was Sungwon approved. Right. So I do remember that, and I remember having difficulty when I was adapting that. So thank you, Sungwon, for making the point clear for everyone.
Yeah, no, it was excellent.
Something we talked about in this show early on too is how it is so real world in the sense of you need food to survive, and obviously if you're hungry you will not perform as well. But the other aspect of needing a bathroom, and the fact that they included that of like there's a restroom system in this space, is also kind of like, I feel most movies and shows just kind of skip over that. But if we're following these stories and we want it to feel real, people need to go to the bathroom, they need to eat, they need to sleep. So when you skip over those things, you just kind of like, I don't know how they want to survive. Like somebody would have had a problem by now. So I kind of like that groundedness that it has of like, yeah, that makes it like they don't need to dwell on it and like, do a whole episode about it. But just having that little bit about it was entertaining and kind of refreshing to have that of like, yes, thank you. This is would be a problem at going through this space. I mean, and it's funny too for our story.
there's something to be said about economy of story. How long do you have to tell it? What medium are you telling it in? All that fun stuff. And whether or not you really want to get into that. Like I may be misattributing this. This might just be hearsay and not an actual quote, but there was something about George R.R. Martin getting some of the ideas for Song of Ice and Fire with, all right, well, Lord of the Rings is nice, but what's Aragorn's tax policy? What, like, he really wanted to get into the, okay, but how does it work? There are really nitty-gritty world builders out there, and he is definitely one of them. And so they do focus on, like, how does hygiene work? How does food work? How do supply lines and travel time? And like, how does that work? How does that affect things in the long run? And that's also why you can kind of see the show Game of Thrones breaking down from season 1 to season 8, where we start with a fantasy that's like that and end with a fantasy that's a little more character focused, kind of. Anyway, that's Tangent Corner. Point being, this is a show, this is a story that is so much about the food and the ecosystem that it makes sense that it would also very much address the hygiene and bathroom situation. Like, it is grounded more in that here is how it would function realistically, where you have other shows that want to pull back and go, we're focusing on the battles, we're focusing on the monsters, we're focusing on the dungeon exploration. Yeah, that kind of stuff happens, but that's not what we're here for, and that's not what the audience is here for in this story in particular. So I hesitate to call it a flaw in stories that don't address it, because not every story needs to. But I do appreciate that this one is focused on the mechanics of a balanced meal, an ecosystem, and so brings in all aspects of that.
It's adjacent
well, the thing
to
is that.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Carrie. Go. No, after you.
Real quick, it's adjacent to the Coffee Cup Awards, and if you don't know what that is, just look it up on YouTube.
That you were saying
everything that, everything about the bathroom ends up, it even though it locks into sort of the logic of the world and the environment and the story. What it actually ends up doing is playing off of this joke with Marcel's disgust at her discovery or her realization, like, oh my God, that's shit and piss. It's like,
yeah.
And then Chilchuk obviously has to remind her, how do you think they fertilize carrots up top? It's like, I mean, but it's kind of like it's done in a clever way so that, like, world building for me, a lot of times it just gets in the way of just the plot and the story, which is what, is the entertaining stuff for me anyway, as an audience member. So sometimes I'll watch something and it gets so intricate with like explaining every little detail that it just, for me, I'm just like, literally, I'm like Marcel sitting by the window going, yeah, whatever. It's like, I just want to just fucking just shut it off and just go watch something that's an hour and a half long and like fun. There was something I watched the other day. I can't remember what it is now. It was an hour and a half long. And I thought it was going to be, great. I'll just sit here with a sandwich and then just chill for 45 minutes watching the rest of this thing. And it was an hour and a half of like world building. And it wasn't a fantasy or anything like that. It was just like, here are the intricacies of this and this. I mean, there's a movie like that Chantal Akerman made way back in the 60s or 70s called Jean Domaine, and then there's an address. I can't remember the whole thing. I can't even pronounce it right in French. But it's like 24 hours in the life of this a French housewife.
Oh, so it's a slice of life movie.
So it's a slice of life, literally. But you get the whole damn life, and in this 24-hour period of time, and it's very just like you're watching her peel potatoes for like 15 minutes. But it is riveting. The movie is fantastic. Like it is unbelievable. Like Chantal Akerman is like a fantastic director anyway, but that movie is like, wow.
Well, speaking of
I strongly suggest you check it out if you haven't.
Speaking of prepping food, we do have that in the episode when they meet some other residents of the dungeon. And that was quite the interesting plot line of like, oh shit, they're just going to kill anybody and everybody. And then they're like, oh no, we're with him. We're okay. We're cool.
But also looping into the ecosystem upheaval. Like the dragon's not supposed to be sniffing around where they are. So then they had to move and they're up here where they're not normally. So yeah, we talk a little bit about that. And then 5 minutes of screen time later, it's like, oh, that's a lot of murder. Okay.
Yeah.
Also, that bread looked delicious. I was like, oh, that probably was the most appetizing thing of this episode. I'm like, oh. But that was also easy ingredients. I was kind of curious of like, oh, okay, that looks. Can we make that?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, of course you can. That is.
I like how rattled Senshi got. Like he got really upset. He's like, make sure you get that. Don't throw it away. Bread. It's like
I have seen both the GIF and the clip of Senshi just rattling the fence and yelling, bread, and everyone commenting, he's just like me for real. Yeah, no, that's fair.
Guilty too.
Oh my God.
But this was that nice, like, also, I mean, subtle and overt, like, how do we have two different groups that have different interests? How can you work together? Guess what? You all have to eat. And, how can we coexist in the same space without it being too, it's not like it's preachy or anything, but it's a good example of like, hey, look, like this is how we can all work together in that space and our characters. And I love Marcel getting in a fight about it too. And I'm all, and I like the leader is like, I like that you're spunky. She's like, all right.
I'll throw you into the fire myself.
Yeah.
Sure. Bro, talk to me a little bit about the Orc Chief's dialogue, because we definitely had some very specific word choice for him. And I want to know, like, how we got there, how it translated from the manga. Like, just talk to me about that. I like that.
So from the manga, he really didn't speak any different from anyone else. And I didn't know who was going to be cast in it when I was adapting the script. But I knew that the orcs needed to be different, not just in appearance, but in their phrasing. Just simply saying, I mean, I say simply, but it was kind of difficult to make the rules for like how they would phrase something and how they would, use contractions when there shouldn't be contractions and those kinds of things. It was just little blobs that added color to the dialogue and hopefully helped Imari when he was recording. I mean, he didn't complain, so I think it helped him. He was having fun with it, I think. But yeah, those were just ways of making them feel like they were their own separate community from the humanoids. Because they were, they were pushed down into the dungeon. I mean, again, Marcel says, well, you guys kept raiding our fields. What do you want us to do? Setting fire to the cave so that they don't come out. I mean, that's pretty brutal, but like, it's, so I knew it was an opportunity to just, change it so that not all the characters or all the all the communities or races or ethnicities or however that they don't all speak the same, because in life communities speak different to each other. It's you guys, I'm sure you guys in your circle of friends, like I do, you speak a little different than you would at work or on your show. It's kind of like, I was just thinking about that, and if any place needed it, it was the orcs, just that they don't speak like humans, because so
a different dialect.
I guess sort of a different dialect, sort of.
Well, because they're different areas, so it makes sense if they would know. Obviously they can speak the same language and understand each other, because we don't have that of like, well, we learned English or whatever language it's being presented.
Common.
The common language we all know. Yes. It's just yes, everyone speaks the same thing. Everybody has a babblefish, so we're all set.
Yes.
Exactly.
Or or they have a Time Lord nearby. So
I was gonna say the universal translator in the TARDIS. Yep. We have fun here.
Yeah. I was like, wait, hold on. Because that's why it's Nighttime in the Nerd Bar. It's all nerdy things on this show. So anything else specific? So, was there anything that surprised you with this show? I mean, we talked about earlier how it was relatively a more straightforward show, but was there anything that surprised you in the adaptation process, or how they brought it to animated versus just on the page, or anything in that kind of realm?
I mean, well, it's definitely things that the animators at Trigger and the director were doing. The two shots that cracked me up the most, the one with Marcel by the window after she's recovered from the mandrake screaming and the bat hitting her and all that stuff, when she's telling Senshi, she's like, rub it in, why don't you? Just her posture, I mean, it matches the panel in the manga. The way the face is drawn, it's kind of pudgy, and it kind of there's that. But in the there's a shot, I think it's in episode 3. Yeah, I think it's in episode 3 where she grabs Chilchuck, and it's just this wide shot, so you see everybody. She's over on the right with Chilchuck, or frame right with Chilchuck. She grabs him and she marches over to Laios, and then she hooks her staff around his head and starts like giving him shit. And that the physicality of that was like, oh, fantastic, it's Trigger. It's like it's the only other show I've worked on that was a Trigger show was Kill la Kill. And so that kind of stuff started reminding me of Kill la Kill, which I loved. I loved the animation, the sort of 2D little cutout type of things that Imaishi was doing with his animation team there. So whenever the animation starts doing that, whenever the physicality gets in and like characters are pulling and the cheek is like a trapezoid shape or whatever, and I mean stuff like that, I always dig that. But they still honor the manga authors panels. It's pretty amazing how they do that.
I've seen comparison shots going around again on Twitter and Tumblr where here's the screen grab from the anime, here's the panel, and it's basically the same or very close to, and people going,
No. Well, I'm glad fans are getting what they like and what they want and stuff. And I'm glad Trigger was able to do it in a way that works for the attitude of the show and all that kind of stuff. Because sometimes, I mean, if you're so hell bent on honoring panels, sometimes you're missing like a bigger point or something that could be more powerful in a wider shot or a closer shot that maybe the artist drawing the manga, they had to do, frame it a certain way. But I'm glad, at least in the episodes that I've worked on and seen, I'm glad they've been able to honor it and still put their little flair in there too. So
yeah.
And sometimes the animation just helps because it lets the still images get room to breathe. Because I would say that's something for Demon Slayer. Of like, I like the manga a lot and I love the animation, but it's so cool to see it to there that it gets like that in between moments get filled more. And I like how you brought up how with Delicious in Dungeon, Studio Trigger, even though it's they're doing the animation, they're giving their flair, but still honoring the source material, which is like, that should make everyone happy. They're like, yes.
Well, and Trigger is one of those studios that I would trust to do damn near anything.
But they also have a very particular style that some people might not quite, because I'm like, Kill la Kill's animation style. I was like, But I
some people just didn't get it.
Yeah.
Animation style versus
the look
I don't know, art style versus animation style, though, I'd say.
I would say with
Kill la Kill had a specific art style.
Yeah.
Whereas
and
Trigger has an animation style.
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
I was like, we're gonna get into a tangent corner.
Oh yeah, we are definitely, because I remember when I was working on Kill la Kill, and somebody I wasn't on social media at the time, so somebody was kind of chirping in my ear about what was going on and stuff, and they're like, they're saying, look at this shit. These people think that the animation sucks, and they're all disappointed. And I was like looking at it and going, this is fucking hilarious. What are you talking about? I mean, it's obviously they're playing with like form and dimension and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, yeah, sometimes the characters are 2D cardboard cutouts, but like, look what they're doing in the frame. And it's actually kind of fun. And those are when I was working on that, that was the kind of stuff that we would like sort of emphasize in the English, in the dub. It was like, if stuff started going crazy, we got crazy. And and
that's what you do with the Trigger series. You get crazy. It's Trigger.
I guess.
And then like Promare, I loved when that came out, but that also has that still. You can see that style, but they kind of did a different direction and color palette.
Yes.
And that was just like so neat to see a different like literal colors and like the neon and everything. So
it
was like a refinement.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really talk Promare without talking Gurren Lagann as well.
That too.
Like, very, very
totally
similar
different from those two.
Yeah,
but still very distinct. It's
a family. You can tell they're all related.
Oh yeah, but just even
some
the
look
opening
more like
shot,
than others.
The opening shot of Delicious in Dungeon, where we start on the Dragon Eye and kind of do a wide pullback. I went, oh yeah, it's Trigger. Just didn't even. It just clicked immediately. Like, oh no, I know this style. This is Trigger. This isn't normally what I see Trigger animating, but this is definitely how Trigger does things. And that's
The
the argument
postures,
that I
the
would make.
movements. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the argument that I
Yep.
would make, is that the style isn't always the same in terms of like the characters, and the art style isn't always the same, but the way Trigger executes things, their animation style, that is signature for that studio.
Yeah.
In the
Like the
same way
Shaft
that
Head
if you
folks.
see something done by A1 and Aniplex, you can kind of go,
Yeah.
oh yeah, these guys.
Oh
Perfect.
yeah. Mhm.
Another
Yep.
studio
True,
that I would
true.
trust with damn near anything.
Yes. And
Yeah.
circling back to Delicious in Dungeon, was there anything else you wanted to add, Alex, about your experience working on the show, or any fun behind the scenes stories you haven't had a chance to tell yet?
I mean, we were behind the scenes. There wasn't any weird hijinks and stuff. We didn't have time to do like, I didn't have time to write like bloopers. I haven't really been able to do that on the last for the last few years on shows like I used to for like Sword Art and stuff.
Mm.
But there's no real behind the scenes hijinks. It was the recording went really smooth on our end.
That's good.
Good.
Yeah, so it was kind of like it was sad to have to leave, but everybody understood that I was
Yeah.
only in it for the first 4 episodes, and then I have this other thing I got to go do, and it's just the way it is. So a little a little bummed out that I couldn't keep going and just explore the world and just keep having fun, because the recording sessions were all fun.
Well, it sounds like it worked out really well, that transition with who it went to, how you were able to work with them, and that seems like the best possible option of, at least you trust them, you like them, and it works well. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, the show's in great hands. Yeah, great hands. They're two of the best. I would trust these two folks with anything. Seriously. They know what they're doing.
Is there anything that you can share what you're working on now that people should be on the lookout for? Or is everything like not yet?
Still under NDA hell?
Yeah,
Yep.
it hasn't been announced. It's all that kind of stuff. So unfortunately, that's just the way it is until it comes out.
You're doing stuff. It's just a secret.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Anything, Katie, do you have any final questions for our guests before?
I do not. Thank you for coming on again. It was a blast talking with you.
No, thank you so much for having me again. It's always fun talking to you guys. So thanks again.
Well, thank you.
And where can people go to find you on the social medias?
Right.
Oh, it's just the little handle that I wrote in there. That's the Twitter thing. And then that's pretty much it. I'm once in a while I check it. I'm not terribly active. If someone has a question or something that I can answer, I'll definitely see that. But I'm kind of limiting my time on social media these days.
Fair,
yeah.
As you do.
It's just
sometimes.
too much.
Yes.
Too much is the same thing. So
that's all right. Well, we thank you for spending your time here with us and talking about the show, and we look forward to whatever project you have coming out next when you're able to talk about it.
Yes.
Yeah. Fingers crossed that you guys will dig that one too.
All right. Well,
Thanks,
have a good night.
Thanks,
Thank
Katie.
you so much.
Thanks, you too. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
And then I was just looking over the chat.
He's always fun to chat with.
Yes.
He's good people.
Yes. Where's my banners? There we go. Yes. Thanks again for Alex Fun David coming on the show. So go check out. He's worked on quite a few different things that you probably, if you don't look at the credits, you might not know, but probably worked on something you have watched.
Yeah.
So let's get into it. I like that we got to do a deep dive into Delicious in Dungeon. So now let's deep dive over into Solo Leveling, which there were some things.
This show.
Woo!
This show.
I like that we're getting some of our questions answered and some not. And the training, what training you have to do, and the punishment, I immediately was like, okay, I mean, I work out, I like to exercise, but when I saw it's like 100, I'm like, wait, how many kilometers? How far is that? That's like almost 6 miles running every day. I'm like,
it's just like, okay, that boy, that's the deep end immediately. Are you sure we're?
Yeah.
And then the penalty for not doing it was running for 4 hours being chased by giant centipedes in a desert. It's like, hey, buddy, do you want to be Kevin Bacon in Tremors? Have fun with that. Like, oh,
which they just
bruh.
had their like 30th or something anniversary. I shared that on my Twitter.
Yeah.
So reshared it. Tremors, that is. Yeah, so I thought that was kind of a humorous way to show us, speaking of world building, because my goodness, that was like a lot of
that was very fun. The Saitama workout. Yeah, pretty much.
Woo! But
and just the penalty quest. I'm like, oh no, it's punishment time.
And that
where's the black and white bear?
Yeah. And that's one of those. Sorry, hold on.
That's all right. Yeah, no, we have fun here, even when he's not.
Yeah, it's the thing too where, speaking of world building, we get all the screens, which I thought was really cool and really interesting. Though some of them do go by a little bit fast. I'm like, pause because I want to read it and all the details and everything. But I like the aspect of real world in terms of, okay, yes, he can level up his abilities, like giving himself the points. So he's going to go do acrobatics that with no training, he can suddenly do them. However, I like that he is literally exercising, and if you did do all that kind of exercise, your body would become stronger and more, able to do those things. So I like that. Like, well, then, you would become a better hunter, and I'm like, hunter? Yeah, that's what they're called. A hunter, because you literally are building up that strength in your body. So it was kind of a cool blend of physical for reals, and then let me just sprinkle on. Though I think he should spread that out a little bit. I get the strength, but I'm like, spread it out.
Oh, he is in full glass cannon mode and taking these 2 episodes together. So I was watching this one with my roommate last night because this is yet another series where I'm like, oh, you should watch this with me. And I catch her up in the first 2 episodes, and then she's like, okay, now I'm hooked. And I'm like, excellent. Watching buddy. So yeah, she's most of the anime hells I'm in, I've dragged her into. It's very fun. Well,
this is nice to watch 2 back to back. My goodness. Because if we had to pause on that, I would have been like,
gosh, we did. We watched episode 3 last week and 4 this week. We're keeping up on it. And so watching that and putting this together, she pointed out that it's entirely possible that he is learning all of the wrong lessons from this. That's kind of the vibe that both of us, honestly, were getting, because we're watching this second episode and going, you should leave. You should leave. You have a broken weapon. You're busted up. Like, you should leave this dungeon. It is your life at stake. And it's him continuing to go, no, I need to keep doing it because he's carrying all this trauma from being the weakest, and the weak cannot affect the strong. And it's like, on the one hand, yeah, you got a point there. On the other hand, bro, this is your, just because you can't, the marketing, he died. I'm like, no, he was gonna die.
That's true. He did not technically die. He
not
was 2
technically
seconds away from his heart stopping.
Yeah, 0.02 seconds from flatline, but never actually made it there. For all intents and purposes, my dude died. He didn't actually die, but for all intents and purposes, it happened. He never quite shuffled off this mortal coil, but boy, did he get a good look at the other side. So between him being able to figure out the dungeon, but still being disregarded in terms of, no, don't do that, no, stand here, no, we all need to stay or there will be blind spots, and suffering for that, coming away from, oh, you're the weakest one ever, and even just the comments about, even E ranks usually get at least a 70 on the scale. He's a 10. There is nothing there. I thought he was the only E rank for some reason. No, he's just at the bottom of the bottom. Yeah. So I get it. I get why he's coming this way. He's very traumatized, and I appreciate that the show does not sidestep being traumatized from all the bullshit, but also putting everything into strength, being rewarded for needlessly putting his life at stake and putting everything into strength instead of doing a balanced build with a victory over this snake. He just hugged it to death. Like, again,
Yep.
I really do worry that he is taking the wrong lessons from this. Like, I think my roommate's right. I think he's taking the wrong lessons from this. And if that is the case, I sincerely hope that the show follows up by biting him in the ass over it. Because there is a certain tone for some shows and some movies and whatnot like this that really gets into, like, our character gets subsumed by revenge, subsumed by one particular mindset, and it stops being, oh, they're bettering themselves, oh, this is their success story, and starts being, ooh, we're going straight off a cliff. And it's very much a question of, is the narrative aware that this is what's happening? Does the narrative know that this guy might be taking all the wrong lessons from this? Does the narrative have an opinion on this? Or are we just watching this guy tango down the slippery slope and the narrative's going, yay, look at him go? Like,
I think it's aware. And adjacently, my concern was it's either in the intro, I think it's in the intro. We see him and he kind of has a creepy smile, triumphant kind of pose thing. And I'm like, is he going to go that other direction where in becoming so strong, he'll be the like asshole jock stereotype of like, you all are in my way? You know, is he going to get so good and not remain like humble in himself? Is that just going to like power hungry go to his head? And I'm kind of wondering that, which sounds kind of parallel to what you guys are mentioning
yeah,
too. I'm like, yeah.
that is my concern. And again, no manhwa spoilers for this, please.
Yeah.
No webcomic spoilers for this. I think he's going to fight Johnny Dark Souls sooner rather than later. Yeah, that's fair.
Giga Derek in
He
the chat.
just,
Thank you. Yeah.
I am very
I'm concerned. Yeah.
and I'm concerned again about the execution because I prefer the story to be at least a little critical of what's going on there, or even just
it might
aware
be-
that that's what's going on there.
The problem too is he has nobody to really talk to about this, and he hasn't. That's when we'd probably get somebody else going, "Hey, that's weird," or "That's too much," or something. When he
Yeah.
finally gets to talk to somebody, which it sounds like maybe it might be his sister soon, maybe because she is. I like that we're getting a little bit more of him. Him and her together, and
Yes.
then I also liked his friend. I'm blanking on her name, but also how she's dealing with her trauma, which 100% understand that one. And I like that they show that it's like, no, it's gonna. It was a week ago.
Before we lit back into her, I got one more thing I want to say about it. I definitely want to talk about her. Just one more thing. I cannot for the life of me remember who say it. It's a quote, not about power corrupting, but when someone gets power, it reveals who they actually are. It reveals what they always wanted to do.
Yes.
And so that becomes my question. How much of your necessity to be clever and be kind and be unassuming, how much of that was because you were stuck at the literal bottom of the barrel? And who is he going to become now that that's no longer the case? Like, again, power does not corrupt, power reveals. One fear.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, let's talk about our friend the healer who's having a hard time.
And they're just like, oh, maybe you haven't gotten over. I'm like, that was a week ago. That could take like years to get over. If you experience near death, almost all of your friends die. Almost all of them. And it's very brutal, like, give her a break. Oh my gosh. Like, they're just like, well, you might not want to do this thing. And she's like, yeah, no, I don't.
Well, and episode 2 was very clear about she does not handle pressure well, and she knows that about herself, which is why, despite being one of the, let's say, mid, if our scale goes from S to E, with S being above A, because we do that now, being a mid-ranked healer and taking lower tier dungeons all the time, so she knows that she can coast a little, that it's not going to be as bad. Like, she's doing this for herself. And I know there's an argument there like, oh, be a little braver. I'm like, no. As an adult who's been burned out for over a year, no. You take care of yourself, especially when your damn life is at stake every time you step in the door. So she was not prepared to be into the hellscape. None of them were prepared to walk into that hellscape, let's be real. But she in particular took this not because it was at her level, not because it was at her power level, but because it was at her comfort level. And I would imagine that she was in a couple of B rank dungeons before she realized that about herself.
She's like, ooh, maybe not.
So, yeah, she's a little upended by the fact that it turned into S rank puzzle hell. And of the, I think we had 12 people. We had to have more than 12. I think we had like 21 people go in because we had an uneven number because our protagonist was the deciding vote. And we had quite a few people just. So we had, and she watched a lot of people die that day. She damn near died herself, and she had to leave a dear friend and a crush, someone she had feelings for, to die. Despite the fact that he had saved all their lives by figuring things out, she had to leave him there to die because he could not walk out and neither could she. And she did not choose to leave him there to die. She got knocked out and carried out, which was the right decision to, none of them leaving at all was the right decision at that point. Those 6 needed to have stayed. And then maybe we'd have a few other people. But at that point, when they could no longer keep the statues from advancing, that was the smarter play to save as many lives as possible. They got screwed over by the 3 other people, so at that point, that's what you can do.
Speaking of them, thinking of that line of them wrapping up the dungeon, the investigators essentially who come to check them out and everything, they're not asking the right questions. Because if this dungeon suddenly disappears, per the rules of their world, that means it was conquered.
Solved.
You know, it was solved, problem all done. But they never seem to go, how did that get solved? How did that, how did that wrap up? They're not really asking the good questions, but it's interesting them checking in on things and then reporting to someone higher, and that their whatever devices they have to measure abilities can't tell that he has his other screens
at that point. Well, they can't tell that he's changed roles, but at that point he had done exactly 0 leveling up because that was his first day being conscious, and he chose not to do his daily quest, and instead he got to be in a Tremors sequel, and not one of the good ones.
And what was the other thing on that too is, I did think it was interesting and the world building, and then your own thinking of it is how those screens work too. Was interesting to watch them try to figure out like how to navigate them, because if this is blocking your view, there needs to be a really quick way to be like, close, gone, like get out of my way. Because if there's things happening, it seemed a little bit like, wait, how does he go, like swipe? Are we doing the Marvel? Like
that it's all voice commands. And that he isn't as much of a gamer as, say, his sister, because he's asking her, like, you used to play all these games. How does this work? How would you do this? Oh, your message box. Message box? And then, oh, hey. Maybe it will be his sister advising him on game mechanics. Or maybe she'll suss him out because of it.
Because he's being weird, and they're not picking up on it enough.
Well, and the last few people in dungeon might be like, how'd you get your foot back?
Right? As soon as they see him, somebody's going to go, hey, wait a minute. No, somebody's going to know, or just, I'm curious how that will come about. And he'll just be like, I don't know. Or if he'll start telling things. And then if there's other entities involved, like watching.
Yeah, I'm still kind of running with the theory of there is someone outside the narrative doing a Dance Puppets Dance thing, which... I don't know. That's the one that I personally think is fun. But
and there's something else going on for sure, because it feels like this feels like a new thing, and like, why just him, and why is it different? But absolutely is one of those like, I am invested. Like, what is happening?
But again, this is also just in. I was going to say it's a manhwa, so it's Korean, but it's currently an anime. I don't know. I don't know enough about what I'm seeing to be able to distinguish. I want to say it's just in Korea, but regardless, this is just the Hunters Guild, etc., for the country they're in.
Yes.
We're not talking on a global scale. So it's entirely possible that we've got someone in Brazil who passed the same quest and just isn't saying anything, that we've got someone in Ireland who managed it. Like,
maybe.
Who knows?
And also how mundane this is for them. That's essentially like a weather report of where portals are.
Yes.
I like that.
I loved that for the
totally
world
made
building.
sense. Yeah.
I love people standing around by
Like,
the huge,
meh.
the giant monster, the dungeon break
Photos.
boss, taking selfies and video and whatnot.
Yeah.
And on the one hand, and again, bringing in other things I've seen.
What's with the normal people? Agreed. They're kind of like, man, I'm just going to hang out by something can come flying at me, but I'm just going to stand here. It's no big.
I mean,
Derek also goes, Tremors 3, hard.
Tremors 3. Tremors 3. Yeah, it's when you start getting into like 6 and 7 where it's like, ooh, you don't want to be there. You don't want to be there. You don't want to be anywhere near there. Between the day for night and the sand for snow, forget it. Forget it. At filming techniques. If you want to know more about the Tremor sequels, there's a really great sequence on the kill count about them. You can go watch that. Regardless, that's how I know anything about the Tremor sequels.
Yes.
Regardless, our cold open for this show was 3 years prior to the events we see happening. And the way that people were talking and the way that people were equipped and facing these bosses and the guilds already existed tells me that we'd had a few years even prior to that this has been going on. I don't remember what like our opening montage says. I don't know if it's like 10 years ago or if it was just some time ago.
Yeah.
But we've had some time to get used to it. And humans are nothing if not adaptable. It's, so inconvenienced by life or death fights. I mean, you have people who live in Tornado Alley who will go out and film the tornadoes because it happens. Out here in California, it's, you feel that earthquake? Yeah, me too. Yeah, it knocked a glass over, but it didn't really, unless you're at the epicenter of it, and that's when shit happens.
Yeah.
So again, it's one of those things. When the really big earthquakes hit a couple hours outside of town a couple years ago, it was Anime Expo weekend. So like the big one happened while I was still at home in the morning getting ready, and the aftershock hit in the afternoon at the convention center. And it's Los Angeles. So there's a whole bunch of Angelinos who were like, whatever. And a whole bunch of people in from out of town who were like, what the hell just happened? And I fully remember being at the Fortnite booth of all places, because sometimes when you're wandering the expo hall, that's where you wind up, is the Fortnite booth. And they were doing anime trivia. And the aftershock happened, and we all kind of stopped and looked at each other and watched the light fixtures swaying at the top of the convention center. And God bless this dude running trivia. We good? Great. Next question. Just no sold it immediately. And everyone in the vicinity kind of went, okay. So that, I would imagine, is how this goes. Like, I would imagine if you live in an area where a dungeon has popped up, you're keeping an eye on it because you know what a dungeon break is and what it can cause. But if it's like, a mile away, maybe you'll go see what's up. Maybe it's by your commute. Maybe it's affecting your commute because it's in the middle of the road and that's inconvenient. Maybe you'll stop and park the car and take a picture or two and be like, hey, look, I'm in front of a dungeon portal. Like, that's just life. These things happen now. The fact that they are taking things that they get from the dungeon, the crystals and whatnot, and want to make a reusable energy source from them. Like, this is extremely dangerous, but it's something that has become very normal for this society. What's different about it now is that, we have our Yahoo protagonist who is now a player playing this like a video game because his life is now different after nearly losing it. And that's what's new and unique about this setting. It's not that monsters are happening and we have to go into dungeons and stop it before they get out into the real world. At this point in this series, at this point in the world of this series, that's old hat. The new thing is this guy who's breaking all the rules and still trying to figure out the hows and whys of the rule breaking that he's now been sanctioned to do by God, fate, the Matrix. Who knows, man? It's the Matrix.
We're going to find out. Hopefully, we'll find out how long it's. I'm curious how long it'll take us before we get more information. It's going to be a bit for sure.
Yeah. So I'm not surprised that pedestrians are doing this.
Yeah, no.
I would also not be surprised if, again, this is Tumblr post stuff and a picture of, a kaiju invading and people taking photos. And it's like, yeah, but when something like this happens and there's all these social media posts and there's videos and you can tell from the locations on the posts, like, okay, it's going in this direction. This is the sequence of events. We make fun of people for taking pictures of their food or taking selfies of their outfit or whatever. And everyone's like, it's so inane. It's documenting culture. And if you're in the right place at the right time or the wrong place at the right time, it's documenting historical events. It is a record of what's happening. Yes. And that is information that can be and is used by other people to piece together what's going on. And then when you look at a fantasy overlay like this, like, oh, here's all these videos of this monster. We've never seen a monster like this before. What works against it? What doesn't? What did we need to bring? Who fought it? What finally took it down? Like, you can go over the social media videos that people are posting and go, oh, okay, this is what happened. We have it from one angle here and one angle here, and this person was filming from their apartment window and they saw it from above. Like, there's no way that this isn't being used for information. Well, it's clout or documented
about it, and they're using it.
Oh, I'm talking about like the government and the guilds and whatnot.
Yeah, I'm hoping they do. I would think so.
Why wouldn't you?
Because it depends, I guess, how much they care about really keeping things under control.
I mean,
of like
that's fair, but it seems like they are fairly dedicated to getting stuff out of the dungeons. Yeah, getting stuff out of the dungeons, but also keeping casualties to a minimum because your average Joe on the streets can do nothing against these monsters.
I was going to say, on that note, anything else on Solo Leveling? I feel we've kind of covered the main big things on these two.
I do appreciate seeing that a dungeon break happened because of a failure in bureaucracy. That they were trying to get something scheduled and that they never managed to schedule. So it was, are you free? Are you free now? Get down here. We're having a dungeon break.
Yep.
The being on call. And again, I feel so bad for our healer turning down something for her mental health, and then it turned into a dungeon break because scheduling fell apart and she blamed herself.
Yep.
Like, girl, this ain't your fault. Ain't none of this your fault. You are doing your best. And that is all anyone can ask of you. But also, my dude going into his own personal dungeon alone, assuming he'd be able to make it out, like he knows anything about the rules that he functions on, making it out by the skin of his teeth. Again, learning all the wrong lessons, choosing to stay when he should have left. Like, it's you have plot armor because you're our protagonist, and the I died and then I got better already happened. Like, yes, there's stakes, but you're our protagonist. Like, those last minute raid invites, but with stakes.
Yeah.
So it's, again, I find him frustrating. And then at the end, just yeets a sword at the thing to take it down.
I like it.
And walks off.
Yeah.
Your friend is there.
That's gonna go.
You don't check in.
They had it under control enough, and that was like the problem they were having. So I'm curious on like how public he's gonna be and like how much he'll keep it back.
Yeah, like on the one hand, it makes sense for him to walk away because one of the the police guy recognized him as, oh yeah, he's the hunter I brought in. I think he's the one that did that. So you can't really make the excuse, oh, I was just in the crowd and I saw it, when there's a guy going, no, hang on.
Yep.
So on the one hand, all right, makes sense you didn't stop for your friend. On the other hand, bruh, just, I am so concerned about you and how close you seem to be to the slippery slope and whether you and or the narrative are aware of it.
We shall wait and see.
And again, no spoilers for any of this. I like, you guys have seen me go, I like my little pin board here. I like trying to figure shit out. In a couple months, I'm going to be pulling the cloth off and it'll be the Demon Slayer pin board again, and God help us all. But yeah.
All right. And
fun here.
Yes. All right, real quickly at the end on some stuff you should check out. So these are other things we're watching, reading, all that to let you know about. And, a weird one that I want to say, I want people's thoughts / I'd say stay away. We don't often have those, but sometimes. The American Horror Story Season 3 was again kind of disappointing. I will say.
What was the subtitle for it? Which one was season 3?
The American Horror Stories. Those are the ones where they're one-offs.
Oh.
Yeah.
Ones that were going on during the strikes.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So, I remember the first season, there was like at least one that I was like, yes, this was good and this was solid. And I think maybe the second season, there was probably one I really liked. And now with the third season, I just had like, they start off with potential, but most of these stories, my main complaint is they're about 50-minute episodes. They almost all of them could be a 20 or a 30-minute and it would have been far more effective. Like, it needs to be a short story, get to it. Like, it's just dragging it on. We don't care. It's taking too long to get to the point. The suspense is gone because we're like, well, oh, then that's it. Like, and that's when you get the reveal at the end. So if you've watched American Horror Stories, Giga Derek says Coven. No, not those. So there's American Horror Story where there's like the different seasons and there's all the different themes. I've watched,
and it's a full season arc for the plot. Yeah. There's the horror house and there's Coven and there's the carnival and there's
actors are interwoven. So American Horror Stories are mostly one-offs. Some have been interconnected a little bit, and I also have different complaints on those of different things, which you can message me and we'll chat more. But overall, the biggest thing is like these just need to be shorter because
it's an anthology series.
Yeah, but they're like an hour, which I'm like, yeah, if I really liked it and it was that great, it would be like sweet. But they just kind of, you're like, well, or another one episode, I'm like, well, they kind of have potential, but I'm like, well, Black Mirror did a version better. So I'm like, So
it is hard to get around the Simpsons did it of certain stories,
Yeah. So, yeah. But if you've watched American Horror Stories, let me know your thoughts. And this is, not really anything against the actors or performances. It's just more what the story is and how it's told is like, wah, wah. But of course I still watched it. I still watched them.
Yeah, even if it starts to disappoint you, sometimes you still put it in your eyeballs just to see if it can pick itself up. And sometimes that answer is no.
I give them a chance every season. I've come back to check it out, and I'm like, well. But a show I am liking that I only have 2 more episodes to go is Monarch Legacy of Monsters. So if you're into Godzilla, speaking of giant monsters and destroying the city, I don't know if I mentioned that I was watching that show. That one's really cool. And something that's amazing is they have Kirk Douglas and Kirk. Anyway, that guy and his son. And his son is the younger version of him as an adult. Oh. And I was like, because they look uncanny. Oh my gosh, how much those 2 men look alike that you're like, yes, you are the parent, you are the child. It's just a really cool way to do in the past.
Yeah.
The son, and then the present day is the dad. And so far, it's a really cool, like, monster Godzilla. You don't really have to be up to date on all Godzilla lore to be. I mean, there are references to things in timeline, sure, but there's still, it's these people, what they're dealing with and stuff. So that one's a fun ride. That's over on Apple Plus, and 2 more to go. So I'll report back to see how it wraps up. But so far, it's been fun and exciting and cool giant monsters.
Fun.
Yes. All right. That's mine.
I'm still watching Holy Moly. For those who didn't watch last week, Holy Moly is a cross between Wipeout and mini golf. It's really weird, and I'm really enjoying it. It's really nice, just like put it on and vibe sort of thing. The new season of Queer Eye dropped, and I'm 2.5 episodes into that.
Yay!
I think
I think
it's the 3rd episode. I'm having trouble in the
Where,
like, have
where's
I
this
watched
one
2
located?
or 3?
What city are they in? City, state are they
Oh,
in?
they're still in New Orleans for this one.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, but I think it's episode 3 focuses on a teacher at a school for the deaf, and that was the point where I had to stop watching because I was cooking at the time, and because so much of it
Ah.
is sign with subs. It was,
Ooh,
no,
cool.
I need to stop and give this my attention. I can't just listen and look up on occasion while I'm working in the kitchen. I have to like actually. So I need to carve out a little time to sit down and like actually dedicate for that episode. But it's Queer Eye. It's a really good time.
Love that show. So good.
Yeah. I finally went to see The Boy and the Heron.
Nice.
It sure is a Ghibli movie. Ghibli movies come in three flavors. They're adorable, they're weird, or they'll kick your teeth in. Sometimes the Venn diagram overlap of all three. I thought The Boy and the Heron was going to be kick your teeth in because to my understanding it was definitely dealing with, grief. No, it's weird. It's one of the weird ones. That's not bad. It's just one of those things where afterwards I went to try to look up like I'm missing something. I'm missing something here. And there is a book that is mentioned in the movie that's evidently a real book that was published in 1937. And there is also evidently quite a bit of symbolism around herons. And unfortunately, I only got 2 sentences into the National Geographic article before it paywalled me. So I still need to go do more research. But I think The Boy and the Heron is one of those ones where you do need the context because otherwise it's a sequence of events. It's a very fun sequence of events. It's very well animated. I saw the dub, and Robert Pattinson going full gremlin mode was a delight. For those going, what are you talking about? Robert Pattinson is the voice of the heron in The Boy and the Heron, and he had a lot of fun. Nice. I am here for Robert Pattinson's gremlin mode. I am here for everyone who acted in Twilight now living their best lives, either on or off the screen. Like, I'm here for it. I support them. Have fun. I love it. So yeah, Robert Pattinson going nuts.
Nice.
It is a good watch regardless of whether or not you have the context. But if you don't, I don't know what it's like when you do have the context because I have yet to find it for myself. But when you don't, it's definitely like, I'm not quite sure what's happening, but boy, is it pretty. Is that bird voiced by Dave Bautista? And the answer is yes. Yes, it is. Anyway, The Boy and the Heron is a very good time. I think that confusion factor might hurt its chances at winning Best Animated, especially since we have Spider-Verse in the mix, and Spider-Verse is beyond good and a little more accessible to an American audience, but that does not in any capacity make it a bad movie. It's a very fun movie. It's just a little wild if you're not quite sure what's happening. So, yeah, fun times, good times. And yeah, I said check out Dead Meat if you want to know more about Tremors and its sequels. I've brought it up before. I will do it again. It's a YouTube channel called Dead Meat. One of their flagship shows is, it's called Dead Meat. Their flagship show is The Kill Count. It's usually hosted by James A. Janice. The Tremors series, and they do all 7 Tremors movies, are hosted by a member of the channel, friend and writer, Soren Gavoyek, and he's hilarious. You can tell that he loves this stuff, and he's just very, very funny. So highly recommended. And I mean, if you've never seen Tremors before, at least put the first one in your eyeballs. It's a good time. But yeah, highly recommend The Kill Count on Dead Meat. Even if you're not a horror person, I'm not usually a horror person, and this is how I learn a lot about a lot of horror movies. I still can't even watch The Kill Count for things like The Thing. Like, it still gets me a little too much for me to handle it. But it's good stuff. It's good stuff.
Real quick, because I did watch some episodes, and I agree. Gigadare says, I've been watching The Has Been Hotel. Very good and definitely not a family show. 100%. That is all kinds of rated R on a lot of things. But it's really good, and I don't think I was as aware that it was a musical, and I am loving the music on it. I feel like maybe that was on the periphery of information, but then I'm like, oh, we're singing now. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if you've seen the pilot is on YouTube. It was its own indie thing, and then it got picked up by A24. Everyone got recast because they needed to use union actors, all that fun stuff. It's on my list for reasons. We haven't gotten to it yet for reasons, but it is on the list. And if you're enjoying Hazbin Hotel, definitely also watch Hell of a Boss.
Mm-hmm.
It's set in the same universe, but it's not with Hazbin, so you could do one or the other. And that is all on Vivzi's YouTube channel. And it's fun. It's messy, but it's fun.
Nice.
And also not for kids.
Yes.
I don't know if Hazbin
is a medium, not a rating.
Exactly. Yes. Like, I don't know if Hazbin has this disclaimer before it, but every episode of Hell of a Boss has like the disclaimer at the beginning, like, this includes this, and this, and is not meant for children. And that disclaimer stays up for a solid 5 seconds, which doesn't sound long, but then sit here and count out 5 seconds to yourself and go, oh, that's a lot of screen time for a YouTube video.
Yeah.
Like, oh, they're making sure.
Well, I was going to say, speaking of a long time, thank you all for being with us for this nice long episode.
Yeah.
Nighttime at the Nerd Bar. But we did have a special guest, which was always fun to have Alex on the show and to have guests on the show. So thank you all for tuning in. If you watched live in the live chat, awesome. And you watching later, awesome as well. I was reading the chat too. And
leave the comments. The comments are good. We love you.
Yes. And let's get into the if you want to follow us over on Twitter, you can follow us at NTATNB. So we post like images from some of the press releases like that we're talking about here. You can go check out there. Also retweet other anime news. So if you want to be in the know, that's where you should go check that out. And make sure to follow here on the Fanversation channel. Subscribe, give the video a thumbs up. You can also find Fanversation across all the social media platforms as well. And then you can follow us. Katie, where can people follow you?
You can follow me all over the social medias as well as on YouTube and Twitch at Kiaxet. That is Kiaxet. That's this right here. Yeah, we have fun on those channels. I am also a co-host on Silver Screams on YouTube. It is the horror channel that I have with my roommate. We have a good time. And yeah, if you want to see us react to the pilot episode of Hazbin Hotel, that is on that channel. And that's it's a little wild. It was a good one.
Nice. Yes. And you all can find me online at Carrie D Lane. That's KARIDLANE across all the social webs. And yeah, there's fun reviews over on TikTok, and some of them I've also put over on Instagram if you're over there, and Twitter. So all those things. Thank you so much for joining us here, and we will be seeing you next week. Bye.
Yeah.